In the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, Israel recently launched a missile which was not aimed at Gaza Strip where Hamas is, but instead at this building in Syria. Now, the targets within this building were not Palestinians or Hamas members or even Syrians. The targets were Iranians. As soon as the missile attack happened, Iran retaliated with their own bunch of missiles coming right at Israel, escalating the situation furthermore. In this video, we try and break down the conflict between US-backed Israel and Iran. We also try and understand the Cold War that's happening within Middle East. Two countries are fighting for more influence. But in order to understand any of this, we need to first understand what is Iran and how it became what it is today. So let's get started. In 1908, oil was found in Iran, making it the unfortunate epicenter of the Western interests. Anglo-Persian Oil Company was established in the following year. It's the same company that later on became British Petroleum. Company and Shah, which is the word for king in Persian language, were profiting from this oil. Meanwhile, the rest of Iran didn't feel like they were benefiting enough from this oil discovery. And over the next 40 to 50 years, the Iranian people continued living their lives without barely any changes being experienced from all this oil wealth. And this was a point of contention. However, all of this was going to change in 1951 when the Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh decided to nationalize oil and effectively kicked out British Petroleum. Now, little did Mossadegh know that his one decision was going to change Iran forever and perhaps for the worst. As soon as oil was nationalized, the British government was not happy with it, so they reached out to their friends in America. And together, they decided to fund and plan a regime change in Iran. And within a couple of years, that's exactly what happened. A regime change was brought about. A democratically elected leader of a country was replaced by a monarch with the help of America, land of the fucking free. Look at the irony in all of this. Anyhow, this new king or the Shah of Iran had his own agenda. First of all, he took away all the democratic rights the people had and started taking more and more control of the country. Everything ran through him and the power was being centralized. The Shah had some good plans. He wanted to modernize and westernize Iran, and he introduced something known as the White Reforms to take care of this. Now, the reforms did have some good impact on the society and the Iranian economy. However, it also did the job of pissing off the three key pillars in Iranian society. The first one being the elite and the super rich. The wealth from these elite was being taken and being redistributed amongst the poor, which of course wasn't a popular move amongst the elite. And the second were the political leaders. Both the left and the right were combined on this one issue. They were not happy that their country was no longer a democracy. In fact, it was a full-blown monarchy. And finally, and perhaps the most important key pillar in Iranian society, the religious leaders were not happy. According to them, all this modernization and westernization was going way too far. It was almost an attack on Islam, according to them. At least that's what they said. What I believe is, in reality, they were pissed at the fact that they would be losing all the influence and control they have over a country. You see, a westernized/modernized country with a higher level of education, they typically tend to be less religious, which means all these clerics would have less influence in this country. So, regardless to say, they were pissed. They were not happy. And as we learned in our video about Putin's rise to the power, all authoritarian leaders need a secret police. Links in the description, you should watch that video. And if you've enjoyed this video so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, it helps a lot. Anyhow, the king of Iran also had a secret police called Savak, and this police would go around and abduct people, kill people, torture people, whatever the king needed them to do in order to make sure there is no opposition to the leader. This was not a popular move with anyone because people just didn't feel safe and secure within their own country. Now, over the next 2 years, the king's authoritarianism and his control over the country just kept increasing. It increased to a point that people decided that enough is enough and they started protesting, starting the Iranian Revolution. These protests lasted close to a year, forcing the king and his family to finally exile. These protests were led by a man by the name of Ayatollah Khomeini, the guy who later on became the supreme leader of Iran. During the revolution, the religious, the non-religious, the elite, everyone who could joined the protest regardless of who the leader was, in the hopes of getting a free democratic country once again. However, once Ayatollah Khomeini came into power, things were about to get way worse for them than they had realized. You see, the first thing Khomeini did was undermine the democratic rights of the people even more. He scraped the Iranian constitution and replaced it with Sharia law. Scrapped is what I was trying to say. I don't know why I ended up saying scraped. Let's continue. For those of you who don't know, Sharia law is a legal system which is derived from Quran, the holy book for the Muslims, which meant within less than 50 years, the country went from being democratic to a full-blown monarchy to a theocracy. And that's why, my dear viewers, if you're planning a regime change in a foreign country, please think twice before you do it, because you might just make yourself an enemy that you'll have to work around or work with or fight for the next 40 to 50 years. Just think before you do it. Yeah. Anyhow, with this shift from being a monarchy to a theocracy, the geopolitical landscape of Middle East changed overnight. Within the same year when Khomeini took power, Iranian students who were affiliated with Khomeini's group infiltrated America's embassy and started a hostage situation. This led to Iran being sanctioned and has been one of the most sanctioned countries in the world ever since. Ever since the revolution, Iran has tried to spread its influence and its revolution throughout the Middle East. That is something a lot of the monarchies in Middle East, of course, don't like, because they don't want people protesting in their streets and threatening their control over their own countries. This situation has led to a bipolar world that exists in the Middle East. On one side, there is Saudi Arabia, and on the other, it's Iran. Whenever Iran tries to influence a certain country, Saudi Arabia counters by supporting the opposite of whatever Iran is supporting. For example, in Yemen, if Iran has thrown its weight behind the Houthi rebels, Saudi Arabia has backed the Yemeni government. The same can be seen in other regional conflicts or proxy wars that have happened over the years. So they've fought multiple proxy wars over the last few decades. A lot of these proxy wars are being fought along the lines of Shia versus Sunni, two different branches of Islam. However, it's not just about us versus them. It's clearly a battle of influence, because Iran also supports Hamas, a Sunni majority organization, and has nothing to do with Shias. Now, you may wonder, why does Iran want influence? After all, there is a cost to war. Here are the three reasons why Iran pursues these proxy wars. It helps Iran secure its own regime through what is known as a forward defense strategy. You see, Iran can engage with its enemies on foreign soils without ever having to go into a full-blown war on their own soil, which is the same reason why USA and Soviet Union were involved in so many proxy wars during the Cold War. Second, trading partners. You see, this deeper influence in other countries allows Iran to sell its weapons and oils to these rebels, which makes them money. And at the same time, if these rebels are successful at establishing their own government, the profits are going to just increase. So there is an economic benefit to it. And finally, and perhaps the most important one, it gives them legitimacy at home. A lot of the Iranians who see America as their enemy, because clearly they have interfered with their state over the years and they're not the biggest fan of America and its allies. And at the same time, branding these proxy wars as Shia versus Sunni is also popular with the religious people within Iran. So when Iran fights these proxy wars back home, it's seen as an act of defiance, Iran standing up to its bullies and standing up for Shia rights, which of course is a popular move for even the theocratic regime in Iran. The conflict with Israel is of similar nature. For one, it is US-backed. And second, the rights of Muslim people in Palestine are being encroached upon, making it a very popular move domestically. However, it's not just making it a popular move domestically, it also legitimizes them as the leaders of the Arab world. You see, some of the big countries within the Arab world, like Egypt, Syria, Saudi Arabia, they've all tried and failed at solving the Israel-Palestine conflict. They've tried both the path of war and paths of negotiation. And at the same time, Iran continuing to support Hamas and trying to help them, even though it's through war, which is not the best way to do it, is seen as a win, both domestically and in the Middle East. If you want to learn more about the Israel-Palestine conflict, there are 2 videos I made about it. The links are in the description. Please check them out. Now let's bring back the conversation to the ongoing conflict and the escalation we started talking about when this video began. You see, there are a lot of things that happen on the geopolitical landscape that are just done for a show. They may not mean a whole bunch, but they are done for the marketing purposes, for putting a strong face forward. When Iran decided to retaliate and push back against Israel attacking their embassy in Syria, it was basically one of the most advertised things ever. Like, everyone knew Iran's going to retaliate. Everyone knew when they're going to retaliate, which makes it very easy for Israel to defend. Perhaps not the best military strategy, but it makes for a very good geopolitical strategy, minimizing the damage, maximizing the impact it has back home. In Iran, people were quite happy that Iran stood up to its enemy, who had clearly attacked their embassy in Syria. It's all about the visuals. They're all politicians at the end of the day. In conclusion, from the discovery of oil and the subsequent foreign intervention to the rise of the Islamic Republic and its right to gain more influence in the Middle East, Iran's story is a very good lesson in what happens when America and its allies try to get themselves involved in countries they don't understand. It's the classic example of America fucking around and finding out how things go wrong based on their stupid decisions at times. In all of this, it's the common Iranians who struggle. They are the ones who suffer through the sanctions. They are the ones who lost their democratic rights. Meanwhile, the political elite or the religious elite, they keep making money. They live a lavish lifestyle. But it's the Iranians who are suffering the consequences of America and Britain getting involved in shit they shouldn't get involved in. That's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Peace. Bye.